All right. I want to say thank you everyone for joining us here this Saturday to talk about efforts for the Fairfax County NAACP Political Action Committee. My name is Karen Camblin and I am the chair. The hat I'm wearing today is chair of the Political Action Committee. And I have with us today both Joel and Tristan, who are serving as leads on two very important efforts that we will be conducting this cycle and prepping for the next election cycle in 2023, which we anticipate to be a lot more intense. But Joel Pulliam will be leading efforts with voter education and mobilization, and Tristan will be working with Tristan Osavio will be working and leading our voter protection efforts. But before I do, I just want to do just some brief announcements, and I will be following up with the information in our email that I'll be sending out to you. But we also have some voter registration efforts that are going on right now. So we need some help and support on those efforts. So if you can either sign up or share widely with your friends and neighbors that we need support helping to register our fellow Fairfaxians to vote. So with that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Joel Pulliam, who is going to be leading our voter education and mobilization efforts. So Joel, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Dr. Woody, I think I have never met you, so it's nice to meet you. And I want to, I think I don't want to mispronounce, is it Charmonique?
Yes, that's perfect. Charmonique.
Right, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you as well.
Same here.
Thankful to Miss Camblin for letting me speak. Did you want me to just go into what we talked about, or just a quick intro?
Just say hi. You can just say hi.
I can do that.
I was just gonna have Tristan say hello, and then we'll have Michelle and Charmonique introduce themselves, and then you and Tristan can just take it away.
Okay.
I probably changed the agenda. That's my apologies.
No problem.
Very well. So I apologize for that. All right, Tristan, do you want to say hello?
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm honored to be here to go over some voter protection issues that you should keep in mind leading up to the November midterm elections. Thanks for having me, and look forward to having you join us.
Thanks, Tristan. So who wants to start with their intro? I see your mic is off, Michelle, so
Okay, I'll start. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see everybody. My name is Michelle Woody, and I live in Fairfax County. I've worked with Karen for a long time in NAACP, but I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, and I'm on the Social Action Committee. We just did a voter registration drive at the Roslyn Jazz Fest, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. My days all blend. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we did that with the League of Women Voters. I am also the nominating committee chairperson for the Democratic election for our 35th House Delegate District here in Virginia for Delegate Mark Keem, who has now resigned to go on to work for the Biden administration. So I have my hands in a lot of little jars here, but my priority is voting. I really want to change my name to Michelle Woody Vote. We just need to get everybody out. I'm very interested in voter protection and voter education at this point. We've got to turn this vote out. So that's why I came. And Karen, thanks for the heads up.
Thanks. And you know what I just thought about?
Yeah.
You were on the meeting on Thursday, weren't you?
I was on we had our Delta meeting at the same time, so I was not on it. We had our social action meeting.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say that was a missed opportunity for me if you were on the line, because that was a perfect, we talked about election and voting matters. We had Dr. Fergie Reed on, and that would have been a very important opportunity for me to have you talk about the 35th and to show, that there are a lot of different roles in which we can take to make sure that the democratic process is transparent, such as you being part of this nominating committee process. And thank you for doing that. And thank you for taking the lead on that and making sure that it's as transparent and accessible for all. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks.
And I'm going to have to highlight you in one of our meetings because this is, I mean, it's really important to
It
show.
is. It is. So thank you. I appreciate that.
So thank you. All right, Sharmanique, you're up. And Sharmanique is also helping out with our Freedom Fund, right? And so she's all over the place with the branch.
So first, thank you for having me, Miss Karen. I appreciate you kind of helping me get involved, and because that's what I'm really here to do. I'm pretty new to the political arena, and I'm actually just really looking to help out wherever I can to make sure we ensure that not only do we have the right people in place to lead our country and our counties and our states, but also to make sure that residents know that they have a voice as well. So however I can make sure that everybody knows, one, vote, you have a voice, make sure you use it, then I'm all for it, right? So I've been only involved for about 2-3 weeks now. I've been helping Reverend Linda with the voter registration. My son actually had a basketball practice today, so I couldn't make today, but I definitely was looking forward to that. But I'll be out there every Saturday with her. And last Saturday was my first one, and it went really, really well. I really enjoyed that. And I was on the meeting on Thursday. That was it's been an eye-opening experience so far. And so I'm really just glad to be able to help out and get involved. So however I can help, I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and you just started getting involved with the branch, but like you said, 2-3 weeks ago, and look at you, you're all over.
Yeah.
You're everywhere. Thank you. I love it. I love that you came in and hopefully we'll start seeing you in, whenever you're ready, just let us know if you want to take on more of a more involved role. We'll definitely figure out how to do that as well. Once you figure out where you want to put your feet a little bit more.
And I think I have figured that out. I think honestly, this one and the Freedom Fund and the faith community, these are the ones. So I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can.
Thank you. Welcome. All right, so I think that's it for me. I'll turn it over to Joel and Tristan, and then you can talk about your programs, and then, just reserve the last 5 or 10 minutes so we can do kind of a group wrap up or something like that, and then talk about next steps.
Okay.
Tristan,
Sure.
did you want to go first, or you want me to go first? Or
Sure, I could go first.
okay.
Hoping this doesn't bleed into your time either, but I just want to make sure that everyone can see the presentation that I have. Everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so today I'm going to go over some voter protection things that I think are important leading up to the midterm election. But first, I wanted to explain just sort of like a rubric of what's to come. So first, I'm going to explain, the Voting Rights Act, where the voting rights come from. We have a significant piece of landmark legislation called the Voting Rights Act in 1965. I'll explain that. Then I'll explain how our voting rights are under siege and how they're under attack, not only from state legislatures, but also from the court system itself. And then I'll try my best to explain potential obstacles you may face at the voting polls, and share with you resources that you can use to overcome or report those obstacles. And then finally, I'll give you a list of all the important election dates that are coming up, including deadline to register and deadline to vote leading up to midterms. So why don't we just launch right into it? So As you can see, the Voting Rights Act was a landmark piece of federal legislation that outlawed discriminatory voting practices adopted in many Southern states after the Civil War, including literacy tests, poll taxes, and other suppression tactics as a prerequisite to voting. And one of the most crucial mechanisms of the law was this pre-clearance requirement. So this pre-clearance requirement impelled states with strong history of discriminatory voting practices to receive pre-approval for new voting laws by federal courts or the Department of Justice. And this had major significance because the Voting Rights Act gave African-American voters a legal means to challenge voting restrictions and vastly improve voter turnout. And as evidence in this, in Mississippi alone, voter turnout among African-Americans increased from 6% in 1964 to 59% in 1969. So this piece of legislation signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson was huge and resulted in a significant improvement in voter turnout within the Black community. So let's fast forward to almost 5 decades later. We have this huge Supreme Court case trying to assess the constitutionality of the Voting Rights Act's pre-clearance requirement that we mentioned in the last slide. And keep in mind, this Voting Rights Act, it was around up to this point, up to almost 5 decades, where it remained the supreme law of the land. Yet in Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted this pre-clearance requirement. So now states had unfettered discretion to create whatever voting law it wanted without concern of being checked by the federal government, and regardless of the disparate impact that voting law might have on communities of color. Now, the Shelby decision had devastating consequences for small communities as well as communities of color. Take, for example, what happened in Augusta, Richmond County in Georgia. In 2011, prior to the Shelby decision, Augusta, Richmond County tried to move its local elections from November to July, which is really weird. It's extremely unusual time to hold an election. They're usually held in November, right? Yet, because Georgia's history of voting rights violations, the law was sent to the Department of Justice prior to the law's enactment. And again, this is how the law was dealt with pre-Shelby. And after reviewing the proposal, the Department of Justice squarely rejected the voting bill because of the disproportionate effect it would have on Black voters. However, let's fast forward post-Shelby. On June 29, 2013, just 4 days after the Shelby decision, local newspapers reported that the new voting law that I previously mentioned was back under consideration. And sure enough, in 2014, the county's Board of Elections moved elections from November to July after holding meetings that were closed to the public to discuss the voting change. So this is the kind of underhanded schemes lawmakers are enacting throughout the country in order to suppress the vote. Our voting rights are under attack. And these voter suppression laws are causing confusion and chaos in such a way that's creating a chilling effect on people's right to vote. And so about 4 years later, we see another consequence of the gutting of the pre-clearance requirement under the Voting Rights Act. So we have this extremely consequential Supreme Court case called Husted versus Philip Randolph Institute, which was decided in 2018. And in this case, it's notorious because it pertained to Ohio's use it or lose it law enacted in the state. So they passed this law as a use it or lose it law. It's a voting law that allowed the state to strike voters from the registration rolls if they fail to vote for 4 years or 2 federal election cycles. So in this case, we had an individual who wasn't inspired to vote in 2012 presidential election between Obama and Romney. And a few years later, he went to vote only to find out that he had been purged from the voter registration roll. This particular voter had been purged from the rolls because he hadn't voted in 2 consecutive elections, but also had not sent back a postcard that the state had sent him to confirm that he had not changed his address. And it actually turned out that only 20% of Ohioans actually return this postcard because people get a lot of junk mail. Some people don't check this. So he sued, saying that the state was violating his right to vote, and that there was a federal statute that said that you couldn't deprive a person of a right to vote just because they failed to show up previously. Yeah, the Supreme Court And this landmark decision in Husted actually upheld Ohio's use it or lose it voter suppression law. So think about the political implications here. You know, whether or not you show up for a prior election determines whether or not you will effectively be barred from being registered to vote at all. So if you fail to vote, you will be purged from the polls, period, end of story. And this decision had devastating consequences on minority and poor neighborhoods in Ohio. For example, it was found that African-American neighborhoods in the city had 10% of the voters removed due to inactivity, as compared to only 4% in the suburban white majority neighborhoods. So as you can see, this law has a disproportionate effect on communities of color. And this is a prime example of how they are banking on us to not show up, to not register to vote, or to not actually vote at all. And they are using this data against us in order to suppress our right to vote. Now, I'll give you a few examples of how outrageous this law is with the logic that was applied in this case as applied to other constitutional rights. So imagine a law that says if you don't buy a gun for a year, you lose your right to buy a gun the following year. Now, I don't want to call any particular part, of any party in specifically, but can you imagine? There are certain right-wing politicians who would probably go absolutely berserk if the government ever passed a law such as this. To restrict the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, like a particular vote, like this particular voting rights law restricts individuals' right to vote. So applying the logic in the Husted decision to other constitutional rights would literally create an absurd result. But for some reason, the court upheld such a voter suppression law in this case. Well, the Supreme Court attempts to explain its reasoning. Throughout the opinion, Justice Samuel Alito implied that Ohio voter purge law was a necessary mechanism to clean up voter rolls and to avoid voter fraud that was allegedly occurring throughout the country, and also implied that it was necessary to avoid illegal immigrants from voting. So state lawmakers throughout the country are making this very same argument to justify the voter suppression laws at this moment. However, if you look at the actual statistics, this is simply not the case. In fact, evidence of voter fraud throughout the country is insignificant at best. The US Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit recently found only 2 cases of in-person voter fraud out of 20 million votes cast. Out of 20 million, 2 out of 20 million. And the Brennan Center of Justice did a report to study the frequency of voter fraud and found incident rates for voter fraud between 0.003% and 0.0025%. In other words, it is more likely that an American will be struck by lightning than he will impersonate another voter at the polls. So if these laws are designed to confront actual evidence of voter fraud, why are lawmakers fighting for these voter suppression laws to be passed? Could it be pretext for something else? So some states are discouraging voter participation by imposing arbitrary requirements or harsh penalties on voters and poll workers who violate these rules. For example, Virginia's Attorney General, this here picture to the left of the screen, Jason Miyares, recently created the Election Integrity Unit, giving him the authority to impose criminal sanctions on potential voter fraud. So the purpose of this, they're saying, is to ensure the legal purity in elections, to give the Attorney General, obviously the power to prosecute potential violations. It's a 20-person team. And it was allegedly, the rumor is that this was created in light of conspiracy theories about the 2020 election being stolen from former President Donald Trump. The Integrity Unit is giving the Attorney General vast discretion to decide, maybe on a whim, whether criminal sanctions will attach to potential violations. And of course, the threat of criminal sanctions could have a chilling effect on voter turnout, because who wants to be prosecuted and thrown in jail for a potentially innocent mistake? And there are fears that MAGA-minded conspiracy theorists who are still spewing baseless claims that the 2020 presidential election was rigged or plagued with voter fraud will create chaos and conflict by intervening in the election process and encouraging poll workers to violate election rules in order to gain an advantage against Democrats. And there are groups that have been created potentially to make concerted multi-step efforts to try and deter supposed voter fraud. And some of these organizations are listed here: the Clean Elections USA, Clean Elections USA, the True Vote, Election Integrity Network, the Republican National Committee. So be on the lookout for some of these things if you're at the voting polls. Just be aware of your surroundings to ensure that you have a fluid and safe environment at the voting polls. And this next slide is just going to provide you with voter protection resources that we have here. There are resources available to you. And for example, the Nova Democracy Center has this program that they have, See Something, Say Something, that allows people to report any election problems they encountered. And, you know, they could send a written report, or they could include like images or videos within the report. So here is the link to the See Something, Say Something, the NOVA website. And also at the end of the slides, this will also be provided as well, if you want to see it there. So I wanted to point you in the direction of some of these resources that could help you circumvent these issues if anything arises while you are at the voting polls. So this next slide has some really cool data about voter turnout between 2018 and 2019 in NOVA precincts. So I think we're on the right track here for voter turnout. If you look at this chart, you see Black voter turnout increased significantly between 2018 and 2020. So if you look at the two biggest counties on here, Fairfax and Prince William County, you see that out of about 52,000 voters, about half didn't show up to vote in 2018. But that number significantly decreased by 10,000 to 14,000, about 15,000. And so, you know, we got a huge improvement in voter turnout between 2018 and 2019 in Fairfax County alone. And in Prince William County, same thing. About half of the voters didn't show up, with 25,000 out of 55,000. And that number also decreased. So I think this is really encouraging. But, you know, we've still got a lot of work to do to making sure that, you know, we're inspiring more people to get out to vote, and we're encouraging people to be a part of this amazing democratic process that we still have in this country, and to make sure that everyone feels that their vote matters and that they are motivated to get registered and to come out, take advantage of the early voting opportunities and election day itself. And, you know, I have empathy for communities that have felt like, you know, not inspired to vote, or they felt like their vote doesn't matter, or they felt like their vote has been taken for granted. You know, I don't know if it was a mistake on President Biden's part. When he was running for elections, he was on the Breakfast Club, and he had made a statement saying, you know, if you don't vote for me and you vote for Trump, you ain't really Black. I think I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if those were the exact words. But when you hear things like that, you kind of get like discouraged, and you're like, wow, is that how they really feel? Is my vote being taken for granted? Like, so I think politicians and political parties and organizations need to be a little bit more in touch with reality in the community. And I think that can be fixed with communication, but also with action. So I really do think that your vote matters. When you look at this slide, there's a list of just issues, which is just a snapshot of some issues that mean the most to our communities. But I'll give you an example. So police reform, we talk a lot about police reform. And I know this is the midterm elections, but these local positions have tremendous impacts on our local issues that mean the most to us. For example, police reform, that is governed by local government for the most part. And education, all right? You know, individuals that we elect on the school board have widespread influence on education policies within our communities. And think about like county prosecutors, for example. You know, when it comes to criminal justice reform, these county prosecutors have a lot of impact on the agenda that is being set for criminal justice policies throughout the county. So this is just like small examples of how like our vote really does matter, and it starts at the local level. So, but you know, I could go on and on, but I think it really just comes down to this. The ailments that are currently plaguing our democracy will not be cured by one election cycle. And as Stacey Abrams has said, voting is like medicine. It's not magic. We don't get everything we want when we win one election. Voting is medicine, and we got to keep taking it. We got to keep making progress. So here's some important voter information. So September 23rd, 2022, we have first day of early voting at 3 locations. October 17th, 2022, we have deadline to register to vote. On October 27th, 2022, we have 13 additional early voting locations that are going to be opening up. On October 28th, 2022, the deadline to request to vote by mail, and November 5th, 2022, is the last day to vote early. And then finally on November 8th, it's the big day, it's the election day. So let's just get ready for that, and make sure you jot down these notes and put them on your calendar so you're prepared to vote when the time comes. And please also look at this, take a second to take a picture of this QR code that's on the bottom right hand of the screen. And this will give you not only updates on voter information, but it also gives you the ability to register to vote. So it's a quick and easy way to do that. Just download it to your phone, click on the link, and register away. It's so simple, and you can do it in probably 5 to 10 minutes. So I encourage you to download this QR code to get registered to vote, to be ready. And so I know that we don't have much of an audience here with us right now, so Q&A is probably irrelevant, but here's some of the information that you need. If you want to contact me at any time, feel free to look me up on social media. I'm at Osavio ESQ on Twitter, on Instagram. Once again, here's the QR code to register to receive updated voter information and to register to vote. It's a quick and easy way to register to vote. I encourage you to do it. And then finally, at the bottom of the screen, we see the See Something, Say Something link that will allow you to report any funny business or shenanigans that might occur at the voting polls. Thank you for having me.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for a very comprehensive presentation. Before Joel starts, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if Jess Brown, hi Jess, if you wanted to say hello and introduce yourself to the group.
Sure, hi, I'm Jess. We just finished up a Leesburg City Council endorsement interview, and I thought I would stop by to say, hey, I'm an organizing coordinator with SEIU Virginia 512, and we're working on winning union contracts for county employees and a number of counties in Virginia. Nice to meet you.
And you've been doing such amazing work, you and your team, all over the Commonwealth with wins in Richmond and Prince William, and working with other unions with the Starbucks and all that stuff. So I'm very proud and impressed when I see updates on the news or within our social media feed. So thank you for all your hard work.
Oh yeah, thank you. Couldn't do it without your support and partnership. It's gonna take all of us to win, so.
And
Thank you.
yeah, and just to give you an update, Jess, Tristan, who is he's going to be leading the voter protection efforts for the
Oh, good.
Political Action Committee, and so you caught the a really good portion of his presentation, talking about highlighting the importance and everything like that. The meeting is recorded, so you will get a link so you can see the part that you didn't catch. And then Joel, who is going to be coming on shortly, he's going to be leading our education and mobilization efforts and trying to get all the information out to folks. So before we put Joel on the spot, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Tristan before we switch gears?
So I have one, and Tristan, I don't know if this is for you, but I got my card from the Virginia Department of Elections voter registration notice. And I don't know if you live in Virginia, but we got this little card, right? It tells me who my elected officials are, but it's wrong. It's inaccurate. And I'm like, what? It says, I'm serious. It says that I am in House District 12 and that my person is a Republican named Jason somebody. I'm sorry, I'm the chair for nominating the new 35th House delegate, and this guy is not the person. So I'm wondering if other people, and this is an official thing, this isn't junk mail, right? I mean, this isn't something that we should view as, it looks official and it's supposed to be official, but it's wrong. What do we do about that? And what do we do to, I'm worried that with the redistricting and everything that's going on, people are gonna be confused as to where they vote and who their elected officials really are. I don't know what to do about that. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is all relatively new. This is just developing, and we're going to see how this all plays out. And I agree that it does seem like there are tactics that are getting thrown out there that are confusing the public. And I could see how that in and of itself could be confusing, especially in light of the fact that it's giving you inaccurate information. I would say to utilize the, if anything like that comes up, utilize the see something, say something link. I would post it to that. I would report it just so, there's a record of this. I think the more that we can get on record to show that there is fraud or potentially, shenanigans that are going on to confuse the public, the more that we will have moving forward to develop a case against the pushback, against the potential voter suppression. So I think that is what I would suggest. I think that we should keep on reporting it. We should make sure that we're writing down notes and making sure that the right people are hearing about this. So when the time comes, we can present our case.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And thank you for that. As a follow-up, the QR code that you just showed us, if we're doing voter registration drives, we're just out there talking to people and they say, I don't know who my elected officials are. Can we go to fairfaxvotes.org and do we believe that will accurately tell them who they are if we plug in their zip code?
Potentially, I'm not quite sure. I know that, they might need a second to update their website because I know that I've actually looked on the website itself and it's in need of updating. And they don't really do that as quickly as they should. But I believe that when the time comes, it absolutely should be updated. So just be on the lookout for it. I will admit that it does need to be updated, but I actually tried looking it up for myself the other day. You know, I registered a couple of months ago. I did it online, but I used the QR code to check my updated status, and I was up to date. So it's accurate in that light, at least, where it will get you where you need to be to register to vote.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I'd like to add one teeny tiny thing. Maybe part of the recording that Tristan talked about is sending a letter, you know, maybe taking a copy of it, whether it's through a camera or whatever, but definitely redact some of your personal information and send it to the Fairfax County Board of Elections. Maybe, you know, maybe directing it to the chair and Kate Handley, who I believe she's now the secretary. And then, you know, CCing Fairfax, the branch as well. So we can, you know, help you track that and keep up to that. And then we can always follow up to make sure that that is corrected. And they kind of do, maybe what we do as a branch is request some kind of spot check or something like that, but definitely highlight that to the board as well.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Oh, they sent you incorrect voting information?
Yes,
That's really bad.
yes, it is, seriously, seriously. And I asked Delegate Keem about it, and he said, you know, I got one of those dumb cards too, it's wrong. That's what
His
he
was
said.
wrong too.
Yeah, and he said that to me just Sunday. We had an event here at the Dunloring Fire Department. I saw him and I mentioned it, and he said, yeah, I got a dumb card and it's wrong. I know you people are looking at me like I lost my mind, but no.
No, that's really,
Literally,
that's a
they
bad
sent that
thing.
out. I'm serious.
It
Yeah.
I am
actually,
so serious.
Hey,
in light of
maybe
what-
we, oh, sorry, Tristan, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, in light of what's happening, you know, throughout the country, it doesn't actually surprise me. So I hope that it was an innocent mistake, and it could be corrected.
Yeah, you know, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's anything nefarious about it. I'm just saying that nevertheless, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to get people to go vote, and you mean to tell me we're gonna put something that's wrong in your hand, that's just too much. That's too much.
Particularly after everybody's trying to figure out redistricting.
Exactly.
Maybe you need to send, maybe add, you know who you should add on that letter list, Michelle, is the, you just covered it. What is it? Integrity. What is it again? The election integrity.
Okay, election integrity unit.
Yes.
Election integrity. Okay. All right. Great. We haven't addressed, or was that one of those resources in there?
That was
Like-
actually what they created in light of potential voter fraud that's going on. So this would actually fall under the jurisdiction of exactly that issue.
Okay. All right, great, thanks.
And maybe, you know, I'll send some contact info, CC the state NAACP as well, especially if you're going to send it to the integrity unit, and then we'll follow up with that. Tristan and I will work with state on that.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Wonder if that'll impact, you know, I just wonder if that'll have an impact. I mean, obviously, there's no statewide elections, and this is a really like predictable county. Are you in Fairfax County?
Yes, I am. So,
Right.
you know, I already know who I'm voting for and all that. I get all that, but I'm just saying in 4 different languages, they sent this thing out and it's wrong. It's inaccurate. It really is.
Is your
Yeah.
district, is your congressional district correct?
Yes, that is right.
It's
Yes.
your local offices that are incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes, at least got my
so
precinct.
that's 2023.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, precinct is right. But then, like I said, I'm not in House District 12.
Are
I'm-
you in the primary with Carl Frisch and Holly Siebold for Mark Keem's seat? Are you in that district?
I am.
Huh.
He's the nominating chair.
I'm the nominating chair actually for their election.
So why is it so early?
Why is
I
what so
mean,
early?
it's going to be October 8th, right?
Yes,
That's really early. That's soon.
the state requires that we turn everything in by November 14th.
Oh, no kidding.
And, but the actual election, the special election will not be held until January 10th. But like I said, we have to turn in our Democratic nominee by November 14th.
Got it. Oh, that makes more sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so I think you guys may have to bear with us a little bit, and we may go over at our mark, but this was a really important and timely issue that we needed to discuss today. So thank you for bringing that forward, Michelle, and thank you, Tristan, for that comprehensive presentation. So maybe if we can just switch over to Joel and get some thought, and maybe that's another thing that we need to do. Joel, is as you're doing your education and mobilization, one of the main questions we're going to have to ask folk is, as they are receiving information coming in about their districts, that we find out another resource in which they can confirm it. Because not everybody's going to be as in the know as Michelle to say, wait, my local officials are listed incorrectly. So consider that as you develop your, implement your mobilization program. But Joel, if you'd like to say, join us, and hi, Sharmonique.
Hi, and I'm sorry, before Joel gets started, I wanted to say very quickly, so while you guys were talking and discussing it, I also sent a note to Reverend Linda to see if it's possible, at least in the areas where we're setting up the voter registration table, if we can also list, because most of the times, if people say they're registered to vote, they'll say, oh, I got the card. But if you don't know to check
Right.
to make sure that information is accurate, then you just don't know to check. So that's something we can try to add to the table if possible. And like I said, I sent that to Reverend Linda.
Thank you. That's a very important link. Thank you for making that connection. Joe, it's all you.
All right, I won't take too long. I know we're going a little over time, but there is one resource I was thinking about, and you were talking about like voter protection when people had questions. I remember when I used to work on the voter protection unit, we always had a hotline number. I don't know, because I tried to look up the Democratic Party hotline thing number, but I did find election protection. I think it's called like 866 our vote, and I can like put the number in the chat. So like on social media, when people, they can feel free to ask us, if they're in line and they have trouble, like, okay, this person said that this is not my precinct or something like that, or you run into problems with your card, we can just shoot them that number. So at least, they can call themselves. Cause I know it's not our forte, what I'm saying, as the NAACP, like election protection. But I just thought about that. So that was a great point about rapid response to when people have questions about the election. This is kind of my presentation is kind of like just a continuation. I didn't make a slideshow, so I'm sorry, y'all. But dag, I should have. But it's kind of a continuation. Me and Tristan and Miss Camplin, we had a discussion, I think, 2 weeks ago about just messaging, and a part of voter education. To me, yes, it's about educating like on the issues at hand, but it's also motivating and just convincing people to vote. Because one thing I learned, because I worked on the Biden campaign, and one thing I learned going into it, I thought everybody was like us, and we're like, okay, you got to go vote. And then like the first time you call somebody, they have a light bill due, or you go up to someone's house. I remember going to someone's house, he didn't have a porch, so it was like people live in extreme conditions. And so everyone is not gung-ho like we are to vote. And so like I wanted to present just some things I've learned in terms of how to speak to voters, whether it's like online through our social media, or when you guys or any of us are at like voter registration drives or anything like that. The first step I put was disarming the voter. I think one thing sometimes when we speak to voters, we don't empathize enough. And Tristan kind of touched on this earlier during his presentation. I think between us, I'm not outside of this, and I know we're nonpartisan, so I'm not going for anybody. Uh, has it been somewhat disappointing on some issues, especially within my community, whether it's police reform or things like that? I mean, I think it has been, at least for me personally, and I don't think there's anything wrong with not bashing the administration, but just being honest with people of like, I feel that same way too, because one thing I've learned, my dad's a pastor, and one thing I've learned is that you can't beat people over the head with it. Like you have to like disarm people first. And once those walls come down, then you can actually speak to them about voting. So like an example I wrote, like someone could say, well, I don't believe in voting because, we haven't had police reform. Well, I can say, I too am frustrated with the slow progress when it comes to the lack of advancements on criminal justice. I think also sharing our personal experiences. I don't think I've shared this with y'all, so because I didn't get too personal in my life, but there have been times in my life where my family we struggled, like whether with poverty or things like that. And I think sometimes when I was on the campaign in South Carolina, it enabled me to connect with voters a lot easier. Like someone could be like, I'll ask them, okay, what issues do you care about? Uh, you know, homelessness, or whether it was we're not getting enough when it comes to minimum wage. I can connect like, okay, I know how it feels to have your lights cut off or have your water cut off. And I think those things, emotion always pushes people to do stuff. I hate to be like that. I'm not saying manipulation, but when people can connect with you emotionally, I just don't want voter registration to be a thing of like get in and get out. Like, okay, all right, here we go, sign it. Because even if someone signs it, if you still didn't make that emotional connection with them, it's not a guarantee they'll go and vote. Like they still might not be convinced, but they just want to get you out of the way and be like, all right, I'll just sign. Because we used to have people do that. They sign the CTV card and be like, all right. And I'm like, they're probably not going to vote because they weren't too enthusiastic about that. I think sincerity is best. Most people, people are not dumb in the sense of they can see through political jargon, and I think most people just want you to be real with them. And always the rule number one for me is listening. When it comes to anything with politics is Dr. Reed talked about this on Thursday, and he said, it starts it's a pyramid, and the foundation, the people. It always starts with the voter. And I think listening to people, it'll answer your questions. Sometimes I'm like nervous, like, okay, what do I say? I'm like, well, Joel, just shut up and listen, and they'll give you the answer. And it's like, and it makes it that much easier. Just talk to people like you would talk to your mom or your cousin or your neighbor, and just be honest with people. An idea I had, and I talked with Miss Karen about this, was like personal testimonials. We did that in the voter protection unit, like 30-second to a minute things we can put on like social media of why you vote, or like what personal, like, okay, whether it's abortion, whether it's police reform, like your personal connection with that and why that motivates you to vote. Little things like that, that can convince one voter that's looking at that online, like, okay, I went through this also. So I thought that was something, you guys can volunteer, if you want to. We were looking at like 5 to like 7 videos, up until election day, maybe release one like every week, it's just a little idea. The second thing is obviously educating the voter, right? Now that we've heard their problem, we have to have the tools to resolve it. And that means us being well versed in what issues are at stake. And again, Tristan did a great job with that, listing, voting rights and abortion, police reform. I think another thing also is like the economy, and I'm not going to get too much into it. I mean, I'm not blaming Joe Biden, so I'm not, but like with inflation and things like that, just being aware that people, while to me, social issues will always be number one because they're human rights. I think, we also have to be on the lookout of how to answer questions about the economy and, inflation and stuff like that. I think one thing we need to push is early voting. I talked to Miss Karen about this. I believe was it the 23rd? Was it yesterday? The 23rd, the early voting started.
Yes, early voting started yesterday here in
Okay.
Virginia. Yes.
And that's a huge, thank you. That's a huge thing. I remember again, 2020, that was a huge, that was the biggest push we had, just because like the shenanigans we were talking about earlier and Tristan was talking about earlier. The best way to because election day is always when the most goes on when it comes to, people messing with people, the funny stuff. It's always election day. And to me, the best way to circumvent that is to push people to early vote as many people as possible, just to get that out of the way. Because again, as the election ramps up, I remember being on the campaign team, and that's just when the funny stuff, it just increases. Like every week, it's just something ridiculous, one after another. And so I early voting to me is probably the most important part of a campaign. So like on social media, even on your own personal social media, I can't tell people what to do. I really think we need to push early voting. I wrote some examples, but I don't know how to share my screen. But I can share this document where I wrote the examples on with everybody afterwards. Also,
Is
we
it a
need to
Google
have,
Doc, Joel?
huh?
Is it a Google Doc?
Yes.
If you want to put it in the chat and I'll share it for you.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Let me see. Let me see. Boldness. Why is it doing this? Sorry. Hold on a second. All right. Share. And we're going to go copy link. Thank you for that idea. I didn't even think of that. Here we go.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So yeah, okay, we need to have info on like polling places, precincts, and dates to vote. Again, Tristan was talking and he actually listed them, but it would be cool to have like, and I don't know if you guys do, because I haven't been to a voter registration drive with NAACP or anything like that. I mean, do y'all have like cards or anything that just have those things at hand, or in terms of like list of polling places? Because we used to have like maybe like a Google sheet. We used to do stuff like that on voter protection and would list the number for every precinct and things like that. So it's just something that's easily shareable. I mean, maybe I can start on something like that. But yeah, a Google sheet that has like precincts, polling places, and the dates to vote, just so it's easily at hand. And the third thing I wanted to talk about was worst case scenario. I didn't want to put scare people, because I I don't want to put it like, well, we're trying to, fear is the greatest, but fear can be a motivator, right? Is that you have to share the worst case scenario. So like once you've educated them, once the walls have come down, we cannot, and Dr. Reed talked about this, 2022 this year and 2023 and 2024, if we lose legislative power, it is going to be very tough to get out of the hole that we're in. And that these are the most important. I know we say 2020, and I heard it a lot in 2020, 2018, 2016, but these truly, especially when you see around the country, I believe it's called, the biggest case to me is Moore v. Harper. And it's basically a case to where if the Supreme Court, and I think it's likely, decides that the judicial, like let's say a state Supreme Court, they don't have final jurisdiction over election results. So it will be the state legislator that has the final jurisdiction on and the final count on what election results are. And I think that's a scary thing, because states like Georgia, states like Wisconsin, again, we're not partisan, so I'm just going to say conservative legislators who are looking to overturn elections. I think it's the biggest Supreme Court case of our lifetimes. I really do, at least of my lifetime, because democracy is all about, if you don't have the power to vote, we can't handle any of these other issues. Obviously, the Dobbs decision is a huge one, and it's been a motivator for the Democratic, surge in polling and things like that. And I think that like scaring people, it's not even scaring people, it's telling the truth. Like the ability to overturn elections, not only that, but I believe that my theory has always been Republicans like small government, or conservatives like small government. It goes back to the 60s. They like small government because they like states' rights. They really only like a large federal government when they're in power. And so I believe long-term what their goal is to destabilize the federal government and to bring it to a halt, to make people not believe in the federal government. So I think this election upcoming, I can't stress it enough. And I think the scary part is that I don't think people are as enthused as they were when Trump was on the ballot, obviously. But it's bigger than Trump. This is something, kind of a sickness nationwide, in terms of white nationalism and, you know, anti-democratic efforts. So I think pushing that and pushing the worst case scenario, especially for people who look like me. Yeah, I mean, obviously the country's not good for us now, but I can't imagine under a dictatorship it would be any better. You know, it'd probably be worse. Obviously, it'd be worse. So I just think those 3 steps, I think, again, you know, persuasion goes with disarming people, educating people, and then I hate to say scaring them, but you know, the 3rd step is scaring them. So those are the three things I came up with, and that's about it. So Ms. Karen, you can take it away.
Okay, thanks, Joel. And also, can I, when I send out the follow-up email, can I should I send a link to this document as well, or?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions for Joel or any comments or recommendations? All right, so I think part of the program, what we were going to try and do, and maybe let's just take like 5 minutes of this. We were going to break out into breakout sessions. And I think we have a small enough group that we can just have this conversation here where we can kind of start talking about what are some of the best ways that we can implement these, what are partners who are partners we should be reaching out to, you know, which part of the program. You heard some really great and impressive presentations from both Joel and Tristan today. So is there a particular focus you would prefer to do on, to be on? And Jess, I'm going to be following up with the group with a survey to kind of ask them all of these things that we're going to be talking about, which group that they would rather be a part of, and those things, so we can start building little subgroups within the Political Action Committee. So I'm just going to open it up for free conversation. Whoever wants to say something, say something.
I'm sure SEIU would like to partner with you on voter reg.
Oh, great. You know, and I can give you this link now, Jess, and I'll also have it in the email. Where did I put it? This is the link. We have a Sign Up Genius link. If you wanted to register for some of our voter registration places. And then we're just going to be using this one page for the rest of the voter registration period. So if we get new locations, we're just going to put it there. So it's one link to know. And then it just rotates and updates with, kicks off the old dates and just keeps the upcoming dates on there. So if you know of anybody that wants to help, there are a couple updates that I still need to do. There are 2 locations on Saturday, so we're going to ask for 6 people so we can, but it's in the same location, but just 2 different tables. So they'll be split up once they get there. And then we're just going to ask for, you know, at least one person to be trained, because we're noticing a lot of people that they don't want to go through the training, not signing up. So I think you only need one trained person to be at the site for the voter registration drive. So we're gonna highlight that piece.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's great. I can add it. We've got a member action team who engages in volunteer political work. So I can add that as as an option to sign up for voter registration, because there are a lot of people who would prefer to do that than the canvas. Like some people just don't want a canvas, you know? Right. So I think that'll be a good option.
Yeah, and then we'll have in the link, we'll also have opportunities for phone banking and texting for folks who don't even like to registration.
You're saying for voter reg?
Just for voter education and stuff like that. Yeah, and voter reminder. Mm-hmm.
But it's nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan, correct.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. It's through the Nova Democracy Center. Great.
So Karen,
Yes, ma'am.
when is the phone banking? When is that taking place? We are, there is an event that the Deltas are working through up, and I guess the co-chairs have charged me to ask if there are anything that we could partner with after October 16th, but still leading up to the election
Yeah,
that you were doing.
partner with after October 16th.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, maybe we can do Souls to the Polls again this year.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. You have a date for that?
I can't remember it offhand.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, but we can get that later. Okay.
Do you
Joel?
remember the date, Tristan or Joel? Okay. I saw you on mute. That's why I thought you were gonna jump out with a, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, we can talk about that. Any activities the Saturday before election that you're aware of?
This sign up genius is awesome.
Yay. They can look at the voter registrations that we have going on now.
It's very
Michelle-
organized. Yeah, this is really good.
Oh, good. And then, Joel, were you thinking of any upcoming events or?
I'm actually looking at this Sign Up Genius, and this is a great resource. I'm not gonna lie. Wow, I wish we would have had something like this. I can't think of any like myself. I'm kind of just following your lead, but I mean, I can go out. Like, you want me to come up with events, or just see where they're like events happening, and we can kind of join in, or okay, I can do that.
Maybe a little of both. Maybe we can, what do you think, Michelle?
So I'm thinking the latter, just where are the events that we can join in? Our struggle was, we want to reach the most, obviously, those earlier, Karen, you had spoken about the, or you spoke about the precincts that need the most help. If it is in, within our service area, we are interested in that type work too.
Okay. And okay, so that's great. That's a good point. And I think one of the things that we should look at is encouraging folks to be inside poll workers. And so I think there may be some poll worker training, so we'll look into that some more.
Okay.
Another thing I would recommend is after this meeting, once I, get this presentation together, sharing the link with your group is, I think, is going to be, because it gives from, what we got from Tristan and Joel is some really great background information, some, hey, this is how you should be looking at it, and really great message and talking points.
Yes.
And that would kind of get everybody on the same page as we try to figure out how best to team moving forward. So
Okay.
please do share this presentation. And
And
then,
may I share this sign up genius? 'Cause
yes,
I love this too. Yes.
yes, please. Yes. Share everything. Everything you see is shareable.
Okay.
And then, even when I release the survey, share that as well. And then I think, what we will do, one of the reasons I wanted to do that survey is once I get the information, folks who indicate voter protection, I will send the contact information to Tristan. And once, actually, they'll have access to the whole thing, so they can see who signed up for what, and maybe having conversations offline. So Joel and, maybe we need to pull in Reverend Linda for some of these events, and then we can have those conversations offline. Last day to register is the 15th. So yeah, and then we can kind of have those conversations offline, and then, maybe meet as a group. We'll figure it out, but I think once we start talking about the events, those conversations are going to need a little bit more contact with everybody than this big overall meeting here structure, is what I was thinking.
Okay.
Miss Karen, so one of my, I guess my question, and because I'm super new, I just want to make sure I'm not overstepping at all. So I went to the voter registration and education with Reverend Linda last week, and the location itself, while it's great, it is not a heavy traffic area. So I wonder if it's possible for us to set up at maybe at least one other location. So that way we can make the best use of any volunteer that decides to join us. And then also there are like a lot of fall festivals coming up. Are we able to set up shop at those, events? Because I saw like the reggae one, and I know you guys did that one, and Reverend said it was great. And so like there's a Fairfax City Fall Festival, I believe. There's a couple other ones, and maybe we can get involved in that and set up.
Yes. And then, we can always the beauty about the Sign Up Genius is we can update it as needed.
Right. Yeah.
And then we can probably, there is an opportunity, I'll make sure it's checked, that every time the schedule is updated, it'll send out an email to folks who've already signed up. So, so those are the folks we want to target. Like, we know they're going to be volunteering with us. Hey, here's an updated email. There's a new event that has been added, just so they know. And if they can do it, they'll come back to Sign Up Genius and sign up. So, and then we'll always, I'll try and get comms to start pushing the Sign Up Genius out to our membership a little bit more to say, hey, don't forget, you can sign up. So yeah, we can add more events on there, and try and look at it geographically as well. But yeah, that'd be great.
So I think that's like the best idea. But I did notice that now this is partisan, mind you, it might be a little partisan. Like I was in the Braddock district meeting on Wednesday, and there's these two young Dems, Sabrina, you guys probably know them, Sabrina and Ty Begley. Like they've been doing voter registration, like outreach to specific communities. Like they set up a table at like the Afghanistan day, and they just like registered the Afghan community. And then they set up a table, like I think near like a Korean community, maybe a specific store. And they just focused on like there's a lot of, this is like a very international county. And I just thought, oh, that's really thoughtful.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a really neat way to like reach out to new voters, like as a daughter of an immigrant, like I think it makes a lot of sense to like have really engaging like voter education conversations with like new Americans.
Yes, we know them. We do.
That's a good idea.
It is.
And another point I wanted to bring up, because I think we have another 3-4 weeks of voter registration. So I think another thing that we need to be looking at, and Tristan covered this in his presentation, is within the Black and Brown community, voter participation has been off and on. And the last few election cycles, they have been declining. So another important thing for us to do as part of our mobilization and education program is getting infrequent voters to come back, because there are some who are at the risk of being removed from the voter rolls, and we don't want that to happen. So I think in addition to identifying key spots to do some very localized micro-focused voter registration drives, that we also have to be very aware of precincts in which we have voters that do not participate. And that's where that education piece is going to come in. And what Joel was saying, having that conversation with folks, finding out why they're not participating, and giving them a reason why they should be participating, and maybe even highlighting that because of your lack of participation, we got somebody in who's not going to represent what you need. So it's a vicious cycle that we're caught in. So, I think adding voter registration is also important, but we also need to start thinking about getting folks who are already registered. And then like what Michelle just pointed out, that education that you may be getting false information for 2023. So how do we prep you to make sure that you're properly informed for next year as well?
Yeah, yeah. Am I wrong? Don't we have same day registration here in Virginia?
Yeah.
And they can vote provisionally, even if they register on the day of
I
election.
think it's a real vote. It's a real
Yeah,
vote. Mhm.
yeah, okay. Just wanted to make
It's
sure.
supposed to be considered as a real vote, not provisional,
Oh.
from my understanding.
Okay, okay.
Josh Cole passed that, right? Did Josh Cole pass that bill?
Can't remember who did. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. What about restoration for felons? And that is a huge issue for us. And I have to be honest, every time I look at that link, I am so confused. I am confused. Too confused to even explain it. I mean, so Tristan, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that once a returning citizen comes back to society, he or she has fulfilled his debt. They've served their time, and their rights to vote should absolutely be supported, brought back. I believe that there is a bill that's currently being considered by the legislature in Virginia. It hasn't passed yet. I think the current status is that the governor of Virginia has discretion on which returning citizen it will give or afford the right to vote. So it's very discretionary, maybe arbitrary, depending on, arbitrarily decided, depending on, which governor is deciding these things. But I think that the bill currently being considered should be passed, but it hasn't yet. So that's pretty much where we're at right now.
Okay. But there is this form, when you go on this site, I don't know what it is, restore.virginia.gov. It has all these things that it says, and then there is a form we can fill out. But I guess I'm just wondering, a lot of times when we go up, our people have issues with the law, and that's the first thing they say, I can't vote because of that, and then they say it, and then what are we supposed to say? I don't know what we say.
Because of their status as a
Because of
convicted.
their status, right?
Right. I think this is like another reason in and of itself for people to go out to vote, because the more legislators we elect in the state legislature, the more likely this is going to get passed. Right now, the Republicans have a majority, a slight majority, I believe, in the legislature as it stands right now. But can you imagine if we got the majority in the legislature and we were able to pass a bill like this?
Right.
The rights of thousands of former convicted felons would have their rights to vote be restored. And that can have a huge impact on voter turnout moving forward. So I think that's another talking point. That's another issue that we should be sharing with the public in terms of what's at stake and what could actually change.
Okay. Thank you.
And to add to that, we will be having a right to vote forum for returning citizens on October 8th from 10 to 1, I believe. And we're going to try and get Tristan and Joel on the agenda. This forum the target is only returning citizens. And we're going to focus and talk about that in more detail. So we're finalizing the flyer and the agenda, but once I get the flyer, I will share it with you all. If you can share it within your networks, faith-based organizations, everybody and anybody. Our target is returning citizens.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mhm.
I'm tied up with the election that day myself, but I'm definitely gonna pass that on to sorority, and we need the churches to know about that too. And
Mhm.
get Alfred Street, make sure we know about that too.
Yeah, I'm talking to Deacon Hebron.
Oh, okay, good, perfect.
You were muted, Jess. Did you say anything?
That's really cool. I mean, I can ask David if we can share it with our membership.
Okay.
So just, yeah, for sure. Just send the info along. And I don't know, maybe if you send it to Virginia Diamond from Nova Labor, she can send it out to the AFL, like the Northern Virginia AFL-CIO list too.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
that's a bigger email list. But yeah, but I think SCIU, AFL-CIO.
That's it. That's an excellent idea. Thank you. I will do that. All right, so I'm going to pretend that we planned for 90 minutes. I think we did. We were talking 60 or 90 when Tristan and Joel and I talked, but I don't know if we came up with a thanks, Joel. So we've got 3 minutes. I don't know if anybody has any closing thoughts. I think this is an absolutely amazing conversation. I would love to continue this, but I know everybody has a life to live and things to do. With that, I'm going to say thank you everyone for joining us, and then I'll pass the mic on to whoever would like to do a closing statement as well.
I'm just wondering if you should share it with the 11th CD. Yeah, like you could share,
I could.
because like when I have to get emails generated to like the Board of Supervisors, it's not just the people on the 11th CD, but they all have email lists. So you could say, if you have like a 2,000 person email list that you can share this with, can you do that? You know, because like we've been doing that with collective bargaining, but I think it helps. That can help.
That's a good idea. I will do that.
FCDC also needs to get that.
Yep. All right, I see everybody's keeping their their mics on, so
I'll say this. I'm sorry. Just real quick, I want to thank y'all and thank Miss Karen. The work that y'all are doing, it's awesome. And we all have an obligation to help out our country and our communities, and I really do appreciate what you guys do. So just wanted to say that.
I agree. Well, we got to keep the struggle going too. We've got to do all that we can, and it's no big eyes or little U's. We're in it together. And I just thank you for everything I've heard today. Tristan and Joel, you rock. I like it, and want to partner with you. This is awesome. So thank you. And Karen, you are who you are, and we thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. I thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
And I just want to second what everyone else has already said. Thank you guys for all the hard work and commitment that you guys have shown. And I know that the hard work, the efforts, the long days, all of that will pay off. And I'm looking forward to just sort of joining in with you all for the fight. So thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you for just jumping in there. You went to the deep end. You didn't say, I'm just going to dip my toe in the pool. You were like, where's the deep end? I don't need a diving board. I'm just going to jump in. So thank you for doing that.
Dude, yeah, whatever I can do.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I just want to say thanks a lot for having me here. I'm looking forward to seeing what I could do to help and serve my community, as a citizen, an attorney, a father. Just want to make the world a better place for us. So just keep me in the loop. Let me know whatever I can do to help.
Fabulous. I appreciate you all. Well, thank you again and have a fantastic weekend and stay tuned. I'll get the follow-up email out shortly. And thank you so much.